당소 당간소 숨기 내탕로시다 간에간에 열에서디 디가 주시시 돈달라 디니기 당소 다디tiên 단주기 리tiên 톱대 여반자 다디tiên 될래야 저기 가르체베나 마음바나 지금 나선라 마저야 탑란지에다 아니 지금 원료 고방 토야게 탑시 배수 쉐바나 다당은 제 고급 비율이 버리 디인자당 저기 나선게 내한딘딘 열에서 파두스네 아니 네수 두스제 되게 하고 봐 제제다 내가 손들에 마토는 탑민도 지상 내가 손들에 타르시 원료 개와치면 원료 고방도 덮고 시기도 세비게 되게 탈되게 삼바께 원료 고방도 덮되게 된배 등에 있게제 디네 자당 아주 원료 고방 토야게 나선래 타야게 탑람디다 가스네 말살비 디바디기 디바 샤톰지야다 내가 저기 체딜이야 개와 배수시의 개와 주변이 아마 저기 도스 주변이나 이제 당한선을 타야다 원조 고방 토야의 차고래서 진짜 배수시하고도 좀 디리에서 장다 저게 돌디네 디니시에스 두시로다.
We've been looking for some time now at this text on the Lamrim, and the sections we've been looking at most recently over the last many months have been presenting our current situation, how things actually are for us. So we've come to recognize that we are all enjoying the leisures and the opportunities that a precious human rebirth presents. And now, in specific reference to the chapter we've just concluded, we come to recognize that one of those leisures or freedoms in particular we are enjoying. We're currently enjoying the freedom of not being in the lower realms. And therefore, with our remarkable human intelligence, we've been able to hear and understand about the current lived situation of beings there. And also, we have an understanding of the causes that lead to such a rebirth. Therefore, we recognize there's a real possibility of us taking rebirth in those suffering situations. Seeing just how unbearable that would be, we thereby give rise to a determination to abandon the causes that will otherwise lead to such a rebirth and to accumulate the causes that will lead to a further excellent rebirth.
통שו수 규버디 안주기 미때래 예디겐기 둔로릭디 망부징아서 통투거래 아주 통투거래 그래서 당한주 마통위기 둔로릭된 자선나려야 자선나려래 사강려래 부신 충충 배 지금 릭 망부 아주 마통 망부 여대로 받아 되네기래 그래서 당한주기 둔로릭 아주 통쇼수 규버 망부여 봐 되네기 아니 되네게 자소다 사강려 된 부신 마통 망부 여 봐셔 안디나시 바나 가라 유티게 숙다 베네 둔로 지제 먼저 라이기 다 둔로 릭시 여러와다 지성은 주기네 통고 말와 통고 말 아니 이다디게 먼저 통고 말 냐와디게 먼저 통고 말에 지상 아주 마통원 자 지수 여려 말에 선비진 노버스 제거에 제마가지는 먼저 마통나 메비 네바 요 말와 지산디니 참就是이다세 이다 냐와세다 리 라다 리 둔로세다 코노세 다 요요 바래 디나이 수 미터 수코론 다 냐와바이네 냐와 코론리 수 미터 요 바다 둔로라야 이다라야 이다기다 디시쇼게 먼저 셰바나제 수 미터 요 바 둔로라야 나가지고 직 나주 수 미터 요데 바치 차거래 또 숙제 있나요 가지고 마통와 망부 요데로 바다 디니시데 차상 소소라는 그 수다 디네게 토네 요요 바차거든.
Amongst the three general groupings of beings in the lower realms, or the three realms of hell, the spiritual pretas and animals, it's only animals that we can directly perceive. Those abiding in the realm of spirits and pretas, as well as in the hell realms, and then the God realms, we cannot perceive these beings. But something that we should be very clear on is that merely because something is currently unknown to us doesn't mean it does not exist. Much of the animal life in this world was for a long time not known by the vast majority of people. Didn't mean it didn't exist. Now, a huge number of species are known and catalogued and described, but it of course doesn't mean they did not exist until they were entered into books. Similarly, or furthermore, just because an uncountable number, or probably difficult to count number of species have been categorized, it doesn't mean we know all forms even of beings in the animal realm. Undoubtedly, there are many unknown life forms in the oceans, and still biologists are finding new life forms in the deep ocean, and occasionally even life forms on land. So again, we should take this as a reason to recognize, just because something is unknown to myself or to humanity does not mean it does not exist. And so too, then we apply this to the animals that are completely unknown to us, because they abide in the God realms, as well as the gods, and then the spirits and predators in general, and hell beings. And finally on this, do not have the misapprehension that these descriptions here are merely metaphorical. These beings are described as having bodies. There are many beings who are described as not having bodies, such as those in the formless realm. But these beings have bodies. So whilst we may not be able to perceive where they abide in embodied form.
nga 주게 라바 메나라 샤바나 차그리 안에 수고 마직 돌로 먹어 마치나 남시 장모 군가 좀 장모 요래서 송송 디 냠나 바베게 소식이 디 냠용 냠나 바베 셴리 동아 요바다 하고 두 그래서 냠냐 공고래 송송 어디나시래 대지사 간조야 캅 주베나 나즈단 거와 주베나 나즈단 거래 나즈단은 아주 기회쇼고 뭐 구겨 되게 어려워 제가 다양한 심해지나 저 기질이야 꽃쭉 파직 주네 건 책이 받은 거 가려 하고 왔으네 그 수부 파사 얘기를 양 얘기를 제가디 책이 받다로 고 콜이야 제가 되니게 소수기 수벌이야 책이 받으니게 갑주나 책이 받 되기 냠의 밥에 신 심절이야 어디 갑주에도 책이 받이 동아 여받 하고 되니 김제지기 지네 가려 왔으네 아니 갑주 패직 주요도 qabla 안 가래 수부 구교다야다 계자야 차야도 시민의 희나고 나저단의 계야난 거부치는 계자도 계가가 용도와 먼저 미르서 거부제기도 양 계가가 차야도 그런 야지 작화 수변의 계급도 계가가 차야다 콜레 디로도 되는 교포 주변의 계가가 지고라 진짜 되니기 계될 계당 수부의 초 구교당상 될 때는 콜로나즈던 거 여바디 하고 두고 그래서 두시네 제가 되니기 두시네 가지고 소수게 매 라바치나 소소를 차기요 바나시 디 차기요 바디 금세 냠을 빠지 현다 미디게 수보 매치바다 심지 매치바이나 오 콘서 차기요 레시피 나저 되는 요 레시피가 나 두시네 단 두시 소수게 냠용의 토네 안파 냠용 금세 삼다지 두시네 고저 두스 바토야 용 당아도 라바 차야 돼 메일단 차요 사회 동아딩 아주 원숨 용고래 원숨 용고래 셀이야 나즈단 거바 책이어바디 아주 원숨 용고 말에 디 아니 금세 삼다제 소설 체유 금세 디디 찍바래 자다 아니 콘솔이야 디네기 매치거든 계셔야다 구교다 디진 체유 금세 이제 곧 용고래서 디 금세 삼다지 콜란다 여바디 하고 두고 그래
to talk further then about the suffering of animals. In particular, why in particular animals? Because these are the one class of lower realm beings that we can directly perceive. So looking at these beings, we can tell, for example, if they are in pain, if they are suffering. And how is it that we can tell this? Because an animal is directly experiencing its own suffering. We are not directly experiencing their suffering, but by just observing them, we can tell that they are in pain. And we do so we can see this through two means. The one is based on our own experience of something that causes us pain. We know that when others experience it, when they react, that's a reaction of aversion and a reaction of dislike, of wanting to be separated from that discomfort or that pain. So, for example, if we inadvertently touch a heat source, perhaps a flame, we immediately withdraw. So, based on our own direct experience, we can tell when an animal is unexpectedly close to a heat source, it immediately moves itself away. Or if it's been lying next to the heater too long, eventually it will move itself away. So we can tell based on our own experience that what we dislike, what causes us suffering, this causes suffering to others too, when they react in a way that we can understand. And moreover, we can tell that, for example, if an animal has cut itself and then its wound is festering and perhaps it's moving with difficulty, based on our own lived experience, we know if we cut ourselves and bacteria enters, we may well get an infected wound, and this has an impact on us. We're in pain, we struggle to use that limb. So again, independent on our own direct experience, we can use correct reasons to understand the suffering of animals. And a second way we can understand their suffering is, because amongst the types of animals, some can express pain physically in a way we can relate to, based on how humans express a pain with their body. But some animal types, they do not move their body or their facial features in a way that we can really relate to. But animals, many types of animals, their cry, their sound they make, this changes when they are in pain. So we can tell this is not the normal sound that a dog makes or a bird makes. We can tell this is something different. And from that, based on that correct reason, we can understand that they are in pain. So this is how we can come to understand the suffering of beings, even when we are not directly experiencing it. And how, based on correct reasons, we can understand the suffering of others.
지상은 저기 제부디 땅에 제부될 김천진에 규에 하고 두고 그래. 제부디 빼내가 저기 미디 고 콘로사도 마도서된 간주 간에 사고 그래라네 콘로사데 세미나로 와. 지상 수비 넘줄 간에 된 것도 책내까지 주도 책주보다 수비 넘줄씩 지금 막기 버려 된 바나 어다고 세미기우민도 세대 세미기우메 바데 세미를 약간가 여바데 디기 때문에 하고 두고 그래. 지나다 지게 수비 넘줄 가랑라다 지시대 님보시에다 지 통진치 가랑라 게게 너무 뛰어도 어고 셈벌 흘려다 셈거 우여바 하고 두고. 지상아도 미나라 미게 삼로디 미 통하메래. 지상다 미게 삼로 콜이야 세미기우여사래 세미기우여사 말에서 배가도 두스도 삼 하고 해야 돼. 그럴 때는 하고서는 셈디기 제부 넘줄도 수다 류가게 넘줄 가르친 것도 될 때네 아는 가지고 그 세미나라 안 지기요 받아 매 받아 도시네 삼 하고 두고 봐.
We use the same process to understand human behavior. Based on our own direct experience, we can, by observing the behavior of human beings, what we're observing is a result. But based on our own understanding of why we act in a similar way, we can impute what is being experienced by that person, even without them explicitly telling us. So if we see two groups of people, and the one group, their facial expression is light and joyous, and we hear laughter, we see many smiles. We may not have a clue what they're saying. They're talking in a language we don't understand, or they're too far away, but we know they're in a good mood, things are going well, they're very happy about something. And another group, there we see expressions of seriousness. Maybe we see facial expressions that show either a deep concentration or attention, or we see perhaps even anger, and we may see a wagging finger. And from the tone of voice and the volume being expressed at, we can impute that over there, everything isn't all right. And if we add to that we understand the language, then we can tell from the choice of words that if the one group is perhaps swearing and the other group is not, but using a lot of positive adjectives, then we can be even more certain because we have more correct reasons to impute what is going on. So what we are seeing here in both instances with animals previously and with humans is we observe a result, and based on correct reasons, which comes from our own experience, we impute what is going on there, the causes that have led to what we believe to be happening.
tarwa tablam chigi yin sebe targu sebe samdayde kechi moreche da denegi jezanda dene tarige tablam dilada karche goresne nyamne chede da dene masung gore deja jidin chimar dewe tabden bi densu da dene ngasol makiyege tablam nyamnen gewidi gewade kan strupu gore sedi da nganju dentrol ke da dungal manyoye ke digi ya ke gyudi samdantade denma da tablam denma denma shuyade da nyamne che ngone nyamne che That is why that Ganjele Ansung Dunga didn't need to share Delia Targu and Tartuga Samba Kihores, that Tartuga Samba Kene, that Tayag Tablam Karchevos and Yamsuling Lalenta did in Mashusun.
Now, having concluded looking at the sufferings of the lower realms, in meditation, we come to the point of conclusion, which is a determined attitude to abandon the causes that will lead to such a suffering result, and to accumulate the causes that will lead to a desired result, a result of greater happiness. Then how to do so? That starts from the next chapter, the 9th chapter, relying on the means to gain happiness in future lives. So again, the link is what has been presented thus far in this one chapter we just concluded is the sufferings of the lower realms leading to a determination to gain freedom. What's not presented there is how to gain freedom. So that is the explanation that we're coming to now. Hence the title of the outline, or the next outline rather, relying on the means to gain happiness in future lives.
That in mind, Niba la Nisa, Tembala Jubico, Godaman Jamdro, Janwa, Dele Tamji, Zawa, Ishi Deba Jeba was.
So in the handout, we're at the top of page 115 in the published book, and the top of page 99. Relying on the means to gain happiness in future lives. This has 2 points. Training in going for refuge, the holy gateway for entering the teachings, and generating the faith of conviction in actions and their effects, the root of well-being.
Damban Jamro said the Dangan's number Sangi Big Chen, Yamlin Che, Temple Juba, Sangi Jumden, the Temba, Donga said, and they ought to be Tabla Yamlin Chegi, God Nangwi, Chiegi, Godi Carson, 단 잠조들이스 제산 잠조 당보 잠조시고 거래 제산디 디엔자 템발을 주비고 담바 잠조 장와 시상가서 강번 낭로를 주발라 고디나 주고바 나신 남바상기비 좀 된디기 제수 자네 데 냠는 제야다 당보 잠조지 고고래 세시 제산디네자 다 두스 잠조디스
Just reading that again. This has 2 points. So looking at the first, training and going for refuge, the holy gateway for entering the teachings. Refuge, or going for protecting refuge to the three jewels. This is the doorway or the gateway through which one enters into the realms of Buddhists and enters into the trainings of the Dharma. So it is through going for protecting refuge to the three jewels that one becomes counted amongst Buddhists and the teachings of the Buddha open up before one.
다지네 델레 탐지게 자와 이식이 대바 개바 시대다 델레 탐지에서 아주 체디 개와 치마 원디오고 본주비 체도 다규 냠는 제와 델레 대와는 레바 시대 제산 개와 치마 원디오고 본 토야기 디텔레 데키 요야기 야고 요야기 유 아니 개와 사바야다 아니 디니 코유동아 타다제 죄지 타르바 토야래야 타르바 토야 아니 산 심자 탐지기 고유 동안을 줘야지야 난 상이고방 토야래야 제가 디니게 상이고방 냠는 제발라 델레 탐지 디니 냠는 차상 냠는 야고 용하디 네 이치 가소래 자와디 가서는 권조숨바 이치비 이치디 고고래 이치기 대바드 고고래 디야바 이치기 매만 디제자 이치기 대바 자와서 이치기 대바래 자와래 제가 두천 자와 델레 되는 용고고래 세래 딜레 탐지게 자와 그래 현재 니 마지나 가실레 레균데란다 리고레 가지 캠돌란다 시바르디마 가지 당보 캠도 치고 그래 캠도 지네 단 건조숨나 접수드비 접수 이시 대바 야고스메나네 건조 캠도 용고 말에 어돌리 게 디바파야다 기가바사야 되지 제가 델레 이치메나 아니 용과 말와 제가 델레 탐지게 자와 이치 자와디 아니 용의 이치 대바디 해서야 돼.
The second of the 2 points, generating the faith of conviction in actions and their effects, the root of well-being. So the root of well-being is actually referring to the gateway to enter into the Dharma, which would start with a training in cause and effect. So in order to be able to fully train well in a presentation on karma, then one needs to have gone for sincere protecting refuge to the three jewels, because it's going for protecting refuge to the three jewels who are the root of well-being that one will have the trust to engage with the presentation on cause and effect.
데네기 다 레데라 이체베메나 레데기 이체바다 아니 도시나 고고레스 지나다 당보 점로 체바데라 나시 베나 시 삼자 시체 나데 강라 접수 주비 규 세야지다 다강 점로 깨라 당보 접수 주비 규체 안데라드네 접수 주비 유시네데 접수 줘야기 유디체 아니 지점이 접수 주비 수유시 접수 줘다지 아니 접수 손에 아니 라베 림바워선 접수 손에 점주 랍자래야 라베 림바르스마 손 도심 제선 that's 시승도와.
So I hope it's clear why this section, relying on the means to gain happiness in future lives, has these 2 points, but they are related, they are connected rather, that it is only through going for sincere protecting refuge to the three jewels that the presentation on karma is going to be fully accessible to one. Without such a mind of protecting refuge, the teachings will be more distant from you, making it not possible to truly engage well with them. So that's the relationship between the two. So now this chapter presents the first of the two, training going for refuge, the holy gateway for entering the teachings, which has 4 points. The causes of going for refuge. Secondly, based on those, the objects to which you go for refuge. And thirdly, the way in which you go for refuge. And fourthly, the stages of training after having gone for refuge.
Dan Geshe Thubten Rabten Geshe Thubten Gyudela dismudwa jir gyumayang sa gyumaya dirini ngar sheba da cediri midye bar nyudu chiwa da chiyu odo yang ane gandu gewala rangwa mejin legi shangwa jin yinla as.
The causes for going for refuge are the first of these 4 outlines. Although in general there are many causes, here it is the fact explained above that we do not stay in this life, but soon die, and that after death we do not have control over where the force of our karma will send us to be reborn.
Jenga son le kiri dendro kiri se kawa kiri se ngaba khaya maris kasan legi shangwa che legi rang yo ma chesan le gar sa ba na legi wang ge da le ngamba sa ba ne nga son ma ki ru go le ya go ge wa ni le ja sha ba ne dendro ki ru go re so ro da.
We see here how this chapter is built upon the meditations that you have been engaging in for some time now. That this precious human rebirth, this remarkable opportunity that we have, it's impermanent. It is going to end, and it can end at any time. And when this life ends, we will take a new rebirth, and that rebirth will be in one of 2 directions. We'll either remain in the high realms, or we'll fall to the low realms. But which direction we go, it's not something that we have control over. We don't have freedom over this. It's not within our own control. We cannot will a particular rebirth because it's not under our control. It's under the control or the force of our karma. And if the imprint that ripens at the time of our death is virtuous, we'll remain in the high realms. If it's non-virtuous, despite any protestations, we will fall to the lower realms.
Logyo Gejir Barna Kasarabna Tembatar Deshin Sanje Tui Jalamna Jitin Sunam Ludu Tangachung Dedar Kewa Nyamchung Nila Tak Digbo Tupshi Shindu Miseba She Sumba Darros.
Then Lama Tsongkhapa quotes from Shantideva regarding karma entering the bodhisattva way says, just as lightning on a cloudy night illuminates the darkness for a moment, likewise through the power of the Buddhas, a rare wholesome thought appears in the world. Therefore, virtue is perpetually weak, while non-virtue is very strong and quite unbearable.
Ramna Tembatara said they paid a shipping and Senacum, Sarip to be couple ya, Page Nahun Shubena, then Jidatsemo Murum that Nahuib. Then the Antic man to get chick, Chawamajel, but you low to assure Namgal Deng, see the bed law to cut it, see the desk, chick toy sure, what Lamgalmas on the back, chick Maton Gallo, Lord, chick Kushavana, desk chick tongues the chick Lord, the Unimu Dugomara, my Barstia Shidu or what did you come there? There's Lamgar on the car share, there's Toya or what? Or the Bedina she now so that Deshin Sanje Tui, Jalamna, Jidin Sunam, Tangachung, said the Diringa, the Milur, Denji Milur, which Topati, Sanjeki, and Jingi lab the 2 years, Sanjeki, and the 2 years, and Jingi lab you ongi, and the Diring, and the Jig. Denju Milurim was top to Ese, Galamna sitting at the Denju Luti and Della, the Galam sitting at the Mimangu, Joseph Jorvada, Lamgatilla, Sundo Shido Lamgashura, did Galam Sura, did Mapa, Madra, two, the Manguyorva, Cesardan at the Galam sitting on the Denju, Tin Della Miludi, Tin Della, Lam Yamne Yapuche to Bana, Santiago Toya, and dele osjedwen tarbi go ba top to ya and jewa chimo ngondio go ba top to ya and dele yak ma jin ma nyawa je dungal ma son le je yidal je chaza yalam na shin ga za ga jose ye de go hab ye de lam de lam na shi ji yalam na shi de nga zo mi lu din de res 지나 다들 nga zo mi lu din top de bare di ji din sönam lo de tang ga jwe de ni ge sönam sa ye ge ji din de ya mo go hab ju ze ji ra wa de di an ni san ye ge tu yi to ge nga zo du xin ne to bare so re.
Yeah, Shantideva, in the first two lines, stating, just as lightning on a cloudy night illuminates the darkness for a moment. So the imagery is very clear, but the point is important. So if we imagine ourselves, we're out at night, we're going from one place to another, and it's completely dark, pitch dark. We can't even see a hand in front of our hand in front of our face, but we're needing to go somewhere. Suddenly there's a flash of lightning. For the briefest of moments, the whole world for us is illuminated. We can see clearly, we can see far. But then that illumination dies. And the Tibetan word here is literally dies. So there we see the analogy very clearly with our precious human rebirth. And this goes on in the third and fourth line. Likewise, through the power of the Buddhas, a rare, wholesome thought appears in the world. So this is with the arisal of virtue in the mind. This is comparatively incredibly rare.
제가 데네기 상계 투영한 적이 되네 쇠남 로르 탕가 중요세 된 적이 대시 로 규어도 식 가르쳐도 통제 조사를 되었을 하고 그거로 통고로 봐 니나시다 저기 덴지 톱제 디덴텔이야 저기 타르바 개와치 멍원dio 고방 토다 타르바다 탐제기 고방 토예기 쇠남 사예기 고갑 충충지라와 레스 오르바 탕가 중요세 돼.
Here, Shantideva is really referring to a specific, rare, wholesome thought. And that is the recognition, just what I've achieved, the recognition of this precious human rebirth that is impermanent, and therefore I must make the most of it right now. So it's not a general wholesome thought. It's this specific one, this recognition that I have to utilize what remains of this life well.
anda sanyi gi tu se di ya ji me ma ju ge den ju yu lu din to ya di chu jum so wa le de ne to gu go wa ju chu jum so wa ji za da sanyi tu se ge wang ama de wa da ma ju ge da de mi lu to yu chu jum so wa di sanyi ge lam den ji chu jum so ya de de le ya chu jum so je ne je so zhang ji du chu jum so de to ba le se wo wa da de na ning bo.
And the power of the Buddhas, what this refers to, is that in lives previous to this, we have a connection with the Dharma. We would have received trainings on ethics, on how to cultivate ethical restraint, and we would have done so well. Thereby, we created the causes not just for a human rebirth, but a precious human rebirth. So through the power of the Buddhas refers to the teachings that have been given, and then by ourselves, who have cultivated them within, and thereby we are now experiencing the result of the power of the Buddhas.
Detar gewa nyamchungni la ta diva shindu topchen shindu miseba si de dang ji gewa side be dan dusu tenisi tungtung ji ma do mere chizada diva side be gyunni wo shu chi mambo sa go re chizada dang anju gewa side be nyamchu ji nibo chungchung re chizada denegi mi chedi dang anju ge chiwa mi ta ba gedi namching eme sinza dusu tungtung ji me sa re go chizada anju dade anju gewa sa sha be nibo chungchung cha de diva de gewa ngama ma diva be pa tu me ba sa de re che du shin sam dang go re se re.
The final two lines, therefore virtue is perpetually weak, while non-virtue is very strong and quite unbearable. How this is now for us to be taken is to recognize our habituation to the afflictions, in particular just how easily they arise within us. Therefore, we can recognize that there is quite a weight of non-virtuous karmic imprints abiding on our continuum. And we know that to generate virtue, it takes some effort, especially to try to get virtuous minds to abide. But these afflictions, they arise with ease. So from this we can tell our habituation to the afflictions, and therefore this burden of non-virtue abiding on our continuum. Then Lama Tsongkhapa continues, thinking about how you will fall into the lower rebirths because the power of wholesome karma is so weak, while that of unwholesome karma is extremely strong.
지산 때문에 기회 유세디 대시 셰디를 가르치고서는 지산 맞아 델리아 안에 지단 점류 규망부 여러 때 이나당 아주 가르삼당 거서는 시위 오도 강도 경让매제 레기 왕상도 규바세디 대시 지산 돈다랑 아주 그리 대시 셰바나시리 지산 아주 이미지 시루를 시도바이나 지사다 가와기행 해봐 요 말에서 나선 기기나 덴들 기능 해봐 매버 그래서 레기 왕의 샤만 송와래 지사다 소수기 레게와 야고 사와는 덴들 기기 지사 레게와 사면은 간들 기르고라 지사 디니에서다 간들 기에바 인다스 데 조베 셰바나 카사다 디린 슈바나지 지사 간들 기에바나 기세데 냐와 이다 두로 되는지 지사 디니기 둔 기에바데 대주교계 셰바나싱 아주 강하대 되는 두아스 제자때 강하될 마탄데 탑민우선 베디기 쇼셔야 되다 강하될 마탄데 탑민우선 베기 될래 이미 타고 될 마탄 탑민우선 베기 삼로디 등 점르기 규칙들에 삼로디래다 지금
So just as a reminder, we are in the outline, the causes of going for refuge. Now, whilst there are many causes of going for refuge, here Lama Tsongkhapa makes the first abundantly clear. Because we are in the presentation of training shared to the practitioner of initial capacity, so we look at the specific cause for such a practitioner. Because as said, there are other causes for going for refuge. Thinking about how you'll fall into the lower rebirths. So this is exactly what we've been looking at, that the situation in the lower realms, and that because of our non-virtuous karma, we may well end up there at the time of our death. Lama Tsongkhapa continues, because the power of wholesome karma is so weak, while that of unwholesome karma is extremely strong. So through the meditations we've done, we recognize that the time of our death is completely uncertain. But so too is the realm or place of our next rebirth, as well as the conditions we will experience there. And why is it uncertain? Because it's not in our own control. We have no control over when we will die, where we will be reborn, or our conditions. That is dictated by our karma. Recognizing how helpless we are in the face of potential disaster, we then turn for protecting refuge. So this then is the first cause of going for refuge.
Andrew Jishi, Jisang Andrew Jishi said, Jisang Manjung Kasan Kinshuba, and Ansung Dunga to get some delicate Bessasa, some man delicate the best Sagri, some big denegata, then it's Chivakia, and this would be that it shared it, just I think 100 day and the Cambridge Gucci. That didn't Jiba Bessasa, Jivakia, Tanang Dele Jiba de Tayagi, Job took in Nuba Suliores, said it. 도스는 니벨리거와 그래서 될 술요래서는 controlla delle cube nuove yiche ba was 제가 다 되네 타고 배 사사래 선배기 직배 깨도 다 delle cube nuove 수요래서 다 때문에 control스는 요래서 내 디교 두개 누번 술요래서 때문에 control스는 요래서 이체바다 타쳐바 이체디 제가디 다 때문에 규 니디 디래.
As Lama Tsongkhapa just said at the conclusion of the previous chapter, meditate on the suffering lower realms until terror and fear arises within you, until it arises in a way that's stable. Then what happens, we continue in the text here, will give rise to the two convictions. So these are the two causes now of refuge. Fear of the lower realms. So here, when engaging in the meditation on the lower realms and fear and terror arise within you, that then is actually the first cause for refuge. Then the thought is, I do not want to be born there. What can I do? I am helpless. Who can provide me protection? Then we turn to cultivate the second cause of refuge. Faith that the three jewels, so rare and precious, can protect you from them. This then is the second cause of refuge. Faith or trust or faith or trust that we can turn to the three jewels for protecting refuge because they have the capacity to guide us to gain protecting refuge. So this then is the second cause.
디네자 데나 디니 식점도 소나 겹조얀 대당 잘라스 디니 슈잘레 템바시 예나 겹조얀 이쿠와시 온웨 균이레 베버차오스.
Lama Tsongkhapa continues. Consequently, if these two remain but words, going for refuge will be similar. But if they are strong and firm, your going for refuge will come to tame your mind. Therefore, put in effort into generating those two causes.
지산다 donala 데니게 마송의 동할레 지비로디 직대 직배 첨부 요래서는 가는 바도시 삼로야 체라게 좀 마투바다 데레 규비 뉴바디 콘셔스로 요래서 지기 제바 지글이야 안지기 삼로나래 아지기 이식이 템포라 셔라메나 안잠로데 디닉시 야고시 용 말해라 지산다 데니 가송의 동할레 탈 지비게 좀빼 삼모데 직슉 첨부 지기다 아니 데레 규비 뉴바디 콘셔스로 요래서 비 이시 템포 슉 첨부 지여바이나 디 잠도디야 다 축첨부시리 거래서 잠도야 홀리 거래서 돈다지 숨거래.
What's important to recognize here, we see in this sentence that the two causes are presented together. They need to be cultivated sequentially, one after the other, but in this way, not separate, together, clearly linked. Because if one reflects on falling to the lower realms, reflects on it well, fear and terror will arise. But that alone does not lead to protecting or refuge arising within you. One also has to have a deep trust that the three jewels can provide protecting refuge. Then, from fear, through that faith, one will turn to the three jewels for protecting refuge.
디네 자다 균이레 베스시체 균이데 야부차야데 베스 균이레 베버자워스 디네 베스인체체 된바데 아니 슉첨보지다 템부시와야 베스 제고레 스tambo.
So there's a process of interdependency, of connected causes here. So first, one cultivates a genuine terror for the possibility of being born in the lower realms. That leads one to seek protecting refuge. Then a further cause is required, and that is faith that the three jewels actually have the capacity to guide us so that we develop protection from suffering. To have faith in the three jewels requires the cultivation of trust that the three jewels have this ability. And how to develop this trust? Because trust is a result. Faith comes from that. So how to develop this trust? It's through knowing the capacity of the three jewels. Firstly, gathering that knowledge. Secondly, reflecting on that knowledge. And through repeating this process of acquiring knowledge and reflecting on it, a deep and abiding trust and faith in the three jewels' capacity will then arise. That then, combined with a fear for the lower realms, will lead to a sincere mind of refuge arising.
That's mainly nazi say the menji yore says men so nazi men the new yore says yore says some tiny guru. Just that never yoba men the sasona made nazi the tragedy as some yiche jungurua. Dicamro nan shagro. Chizada dunga dele manso dungale jish. Dele gube new but sulu captain conscious yore says din cutie. That jenny that captain conscious made dunga dele gukure sebenga. 나서 동안 교그레 셈비 딱 건조섬의 이체비게 이시 등이 이체되다 겸로세 당아서 겸로 뒤에 제사다 도시네 겸로세 디 이체비 이체들이 겸로세 그러다.
An analogy that's easy to understand is if one's experiencing immense pain, perhaps one has toothache. This will be dominating one's mind. What will be dominating one's mind is not so much the pain, but one's desire to be freed of it. One doesn't just experience a pain, but one becomes desperate for a solution. And when one has access to a medication or to a dentist, then having trust that this dentist can help me in this time of great pain, one will rush to them and request their guidance, their help, their support to heal. So this, what is required is a recognition of our situation, a recognition thereafter of a solution, and thereafter a determination to employ that solution. So just like with seeking a skilled dentist to deal with our toothache, so too to deal with the potential that we face, this potential of falling to the lower realms. We seek out a protecting guide, but we require trust that that guide can help us. And if that trust has been cultivated, then with an open heart, we will seek guidance and we'll follow that guidance. So this mind of trust, this is the mind of going for refuge, trust in the three jewels. And the action that follows from this trust is seeking out guidance and employing that, cultivating it within in the way guided.
다 되는 게 건설을 통용도 당아디게 껴그래 셈비게 삼로 이시시리 거와 제사디 이시대다 양쪽에 ям로서 차고로와.
For someone who hasn't reflected well on the suffering of the lower realms, perhaps just dismissing it in some way, not seeing it as applicable to them, or just not believing this kind of thing, they're going to have no fear of the lower realms. Not having fear of the lower realms, they won't seek protection from potentially being born there.
But
this then is the presentation on the cause for going for refuge for a practitioner of initial capacity.
gyudil samdaya gyudil de jing anzo ge kibu chungye samdaya ngasong dunga le chishin jiwa gerwa dada da kibu jingis kyamro samtaba na da ngasong dunga maje 사다 밀게베네 dunga yore chesan kamsum kowa 강도 깨바 이네 dunga resha da dunga delete pe 강아 레도와 sambe 되네게 감송 콜베 동안에 지바지 직신 직바지 데려 껴베 누바도 소리는 점점 건졌습니다. 요래서 이체 바제 니니디 귀디시 야 점도 딩기 겹르기 귀디시 니니 깨네 되네 나 콜베 동안 타달래 점도 건졌으면 껴그래 세비 이체디 다 점도 딩기 겹르래 해서 그래.
So this is a training we each need to engage in. This is how we go for refuge. Later, independent on having trained like this, when one is becoming a practitioner, when one is a practitioner of intermediate capacity, then one's refuge transforms, it becomes far deeper. Then already being a committed practitioner, having a deep refuge, one builds on one's fear for the suffering of the lower realms by having reflected deeply on the suffering of the higher realms. One then comes to recognize that suffering pervades the entirety of samsara. There is nowhere to hide from suffering in samsara. There is no a better state to long for. This is as good as it's going to get, and I still suffer. Then one develops a far deeper refuge, a refuge where we recognize that, or we develop trust that the Buddhas can guide us to gain protection from samsara in its entirety. In other words, gain liberation from samsara. So this is the refuge, the protecting refuge of a practitioner of intermediate capacity.
지나다 코웨 동아 삼다데 지바라 코웨 동아 타다 다 감송 코와 강도 기바 동아 라시 레샤 대사다 델야 다 지부 많이 봐 샘전 탐지 코웨 동아들레 파 직계선의 빼사사래 샘비게 샘전 탐지 코웨 동아들레 직계는 빼사사래 지바기네 샘전 탐지 코웨 동아들 조고도 샘배 삼다데 군론 대디게디 다디디 가소레 점도 규칙 차고레 규티체 지난 샘전 탐제가 검좀 코와 강도 깨보다 랑어 지부만 이제 샘전 탐제 되는 깨보는 동아의 라지에샤 제사 동아 되네게 샘전 탐제 동아 중요하대 동아들 타고도 샘배 될 마타나 탑민 샘배 동아를 지바 깨제 안에 디즈마이제 안에 제 가서 랑제생의 삼로 랑제생의 삼로 디기 되는 아주 마서 코와를 깨게 규차사 랑제생의 삼로 되는 데 용도도 제 랑제생들 타고도 샘배게다 코위에 동아 감송 코위에 동아 타다다 랑샘전 탐지 네 랑제생이 되는 게 삼로들 파 조고도 샘배들 지바 깨제 안에 델레 교비 뉴바드 수르스 깨면 konshusum 유 샘배게다 디니디 균이제 타바침에 점을 기위 규제 다 되네 점종외디 다 디자 델레 교비 다 샘전 탐지 코위에 동아 타다래 녀모 바샤데 제발에 교바드 뉴바드 konshusum 교그리 샘비 이체디 다 타바침비 점을 차로와 제가 단다 군노들라 대지 규당보들라 기부 충유 규들레 세제 나송의 동아 잼내 지신 직바티게 이 여바나 니바니디 직바차로와 다 직바디 니자 기부 충유 점도샤 단 델레 토와 감송 코르웨 동아 타달레 라니 직신 직바티게 바이나 아니 점로도 규직게 바이나 되니 점로디 기부 충유 점도샤 되네 아니 숨바디 샘전 탐지 코르웨 동아 타달레 직바게 샘전 탐지다 코르웨 동아 녀네 빼사사레 샘비게 샘전 탐지에 삼다제 코르웨 동아레 직바디야 랑제징에 삼로데 직바로 제네 두치네 삼다바이나 되니기 직바게 되다 랑지부마 되지 랑지부 코르웨 동아레 깨네 빼사사 삼로와 다디나시 샘전 탐지 되니 코르웨 동아냐 빼사사레 샘비 되니기 직바게제 네 되니 델레 교비 뉴바디 점력 konshusum 요레세리 규치세 균이되세 다 데네 샘제 탐지 코르웨 동아 타다 바샤다 제발레 안 점력 산요 점력 konshusum 교그리 샘비 이체디 다 잡아침비 점로서 자로
I hope what's very clear is that these trainings are sequential. One builds on the other. They're not separate. The former trainings strengthen the latter trainings, but they are presented in a sequence, and so too here with refuge. So it's imperative to go for refuge in accordance with one's capacity. If one tries to go for refuge beyond one's capacity, nothing will come of it. These are all in the order that we train. So one starts by generating fear for the lower realms, then turns to the three jewels, knowing that they have the capacity to guide one to gain freedom from being reborn in the lower realms. Building on that, we develop the fear for the sufferings of samsara in its entirety. So we have a genuine determination to abandon samsara, to gain freedom, liberation from samsara. Then, with confidence that the three jewels can guide us so that we gain protection from samsara, in other words, that we gain liberation, we then can go for refuge like a practitioner of intermediate capacity. Having built those two causes, then it's possible to go for the Mahayana refuge, which comes about solely independent on this prior training. Because now one is in the position where one has given rise to the determination to gain liberation from samsara oneself. But now one lifts one's gaze from one's own lived experience, recognizing I'm no different from others. They too yearn to be freed from suffering. But they are bound in suffering because of their afflictions and the karma that their afflictions create. And we use this as a basis to develop compassion and to develop love for all beings. This yearning for others to join you in the pursuit and attainment of your goal, freedom from suffering, that yearning becomes the first cause for you turning for refuge, or turning for Mahayana refuge, to the three jewels. The second cause is you recognize what is preventing you from being of meaningful benefit to others, as well as what impedes others from growing far spiritually, is our self-cherishing. And here we develop a deep aversion to self-cherishing, recognizing it's the self-centered attitude that is preventing us from being bodhisattvas and is preventing others from being fulfilling their own capacity too. So the second cause of fear for Mahayana refuge is towards self-cherishing. Then one turns to the three jewels, and through deep trust and faith in the three jewels, you recognize they can guide you to transform your own mind and gain protection from self-cherishing through transforming your mind, and thereby to be skilled to guide others to a state freed of suffering. So thereby one can now go for actual Mahayana refuge.
그게 슈바나 신진다 다도신 제르와 당도 베네 나송의 동아되게 도신 삼다 되네 되네이다 야와이다 둔조세데 되네 강가 여러 와세비게 삼라시다 안디마세다 나중에 밀게베네 밀리아 강가 되네 망봉아서 대팅고서 통해 망보여서 밀리네 되네 강가 망보도 왔어 근데 하세야 되게 아주 마통하지 하고 고발기 되게 하되게 동아되네 여러 와세비게 도 삼다지다 디네 삼다 디네기 동아 여바데 하고와지 하고와자 다 동아 델레데 타고도와 선비게다 동아 마산 땅아주 아진 참마강아 레도와데 제사 랑야 타고도 랑 마임버 랑 심제 탐제 코지 동아 데데 타달레 타고도와 선마산데 베사서 심제 양 아주 심제 탐제 디네기 동아 용어지 베 강아 시우레도와 델레데 타고도와 선비게 디네기 코와레야 당아주 두 삼다나데 코와 타 심제 탐제 랑나시 동아래 타고도 세베데니게 감정 코르 동아 타달라 타고도 자데 안도세 삼다 단델 껴비 니버드 수요라스나 gemne konjusum 요래 세베다 이체 셈딩게다 요래서 이체게 단점도 규이듯이 타바침베 당아도 타바침 겸서로 이기게 데네 안에 다델 껴비 니버드 요바자다 안주 셈자 탐조 코르 동아데다 레 수교가 gemne konjusum 껴그리 셈베 이체게 다 이체게에서나 겸러서로다 겸러 주체 이체게 다 이체게에서서 교구에서 매자다 니 교배에게 돈 교원자다 마 아주 제레리 뉴당아주 단달라 데네게선 교구에서 매 삼단에 데네 아주 가르소르세네 다 거기 동아 타달레 타야게 탐제자 타라제 아니 제게 Sanjo Koba Tobala, and Yamler Basha, Tetele, Geva Kanju Jubiata, then it gave a Chima in there, Tin, and the Yapo Toje, Mutuja, and the Gager and Yamlenche, the Yakuchung, the Dean Zada, Shan Jamni Chaju Sem, Gomiaki, Tin Chabach and Tobala, Mahobala, Yamlenche, Tin Chabach, Togudus, when you go on Togudus, and some Dushin, some Daje, Zugi, Jige, Sure. Then you should get a douche some daje, didn't it? Gumoro Masona, Jamdo said, Jamdo Sim, Jamdo some da, Jamdo Tony do some da. Didn't the didn't a Lunga Yusum Yokona Shala, never saw in the Chime, Sempigida, some diding as Sutum Soyadi, the sugar Sumbana Shinjiza, Sutum Swan Denige, never Sava Yungalaya, Dumgorwa, Domiada, Sutum Soyada. Dine and Chige, Maobana, and Dineke Dunga saw in the Chime, and Pig Dushin some dia. Dination and Sosugi, some Dadine Sosugi Chego Puya, Mayanchata, Marmeta, and Puya Lasoba, Carapuina, Puya, the control of Chego Pui, and the Metola Soba, the Dine Sosugi, and Chige, Mandia Puya, the Sosa, Sosa, Chagrova, Dine Manu Puya. And the Suzuki that Jikom Java, Nachanshu Semgoma, Nijukomine, and the Suzuki Sunga Karasabine, on Dusin some daddy, Nanzugi, that Tosa Gypsia said, Duski was I did in the Chagurua, Dusia. Then Dile Suzuki just that didn't Leagaro Chinazin in the Paso Droducala, didn't Leagaro Misuda, Yam Tuvine, Salia, Consulia, and Chick, but never get. Gangaje Java South in Chigime, Sembe sometime. Sulia, Chikashega, Chikabrilam, Chig, Sixuta, Denik Chiga, Denik Yobane, Pan, Condo Tangi Langme, Sevocum Tuba Chigin, Sempige, some Dushin, some died the young under that, Nindelia, Dusinacum, Chick, Yamnache, the shower. Is that the Nigi, Geo Dubaina, Sosa or Sosa Diva, sure, Jango, Dagaja, Sosana, Diva Jangore, Diva Janta, the Sosa, Diva Janamato, and then she had a Jan Mero. She's not Sosa, the Diva Janto or Horajan.
Let's talk about how to engage in this meditation. So we've spoken at length about how to meditate on the lower realm, so I don't need to say much more on that. But do the meditation, meditate on the lower realms. And do the meditation as I've described, but when you come to a conclusion of that, then turn to the three jewels, recognizing that they have the capacity to guide you so that you gain protecting refuge from possibly falling to the lower realms. But also, because we are aspirants to the Mahayana path, so the whole meditation is going to be in that context. Also recognize, but our fellow mother sentient beings are suffering like this right now. And even those who aren't are in grave danger that is where they will be in their next rebirth. And it's only the three jewels that can provide protection from such rebirth. Then meditate on the sufferings of humans. And here we have so much experience, and there's the various presentations, the threefold, sixfold, eightfold. Take any of those. Take those which touch you the most. Reflect on them, recognizing that this existence of humans is not for us to just continue to relax, distracted in, but to recognize how suffering pervades the human existence. And then meditate on the sufferings of gods, coming to that final conclusion that there's nowhere in samsara where we can hide from suffering. There is not a single fellow samsaric being who is free from suffering. And here you develop the determination to gain freedom from cyclic existence. So you generate definite emergence. But we end at the context of refuge. So there you turn to the three jewels with trust and with faith, that through following the guidance of the three jewels, by relying on the three jewels, you will be able to transform your mind and thereby actually gain freedom from cyclic existence. And this is the deepest hope of all beings, to gain freedom from suffering, even if they have no idea why they are in pain. And then we use that as a bridge into cultivating the motivation of the Mahayana. And here you cultivate the motivation in the way that you've heard many times, where you recognize that others, just like me, want to be freed of suffering and pain. No one wants to endure any difficulty. Everyone, like me, wants to abide in lasting happiness. But they are suffering because they are bound by their afflictions and their non-virtuous karma. Therefore, they are suffering. And they do not know the path to happiness. They have no idea about much about creating causes that will lead to happiness. And so many of them, in particular those in the lower realms, their situation is hopeless. They cannot accumulate much virtue. They cannot learn what to adopt and what to abandon. So we use this to generate the determination, I have to become a Buddha. I have to become a Buddha, because only then will I be the most skilled of guides. And now I commit to becoming a Buddha for the sake of others. And in this entire journey, I will strive to help others. And who can help me become a Buddha, to fulfill this aspiration? Who can help me become a being of real benefit in this world? That is the three jewels. They have the capacity to guide me, to transform my mind radically, so I can enter the bodhisattva paths and be of real benefit to others. And here we go for Mahayana refuge. As there as well, it wasn't mentioned, but include the generation of the determination to abandon the self-cherishing mind. This needs to be included there to generate the Mahayana refuge. Thereafter, now having generated the three types of refuge, one engages in the rest of the meditation of the Mahayana, again, as been described in the past, I'll just mention briefly. But the way I suggest that in your busy lives, you do this final part of the meditation is, in order to become a Buddha, I need to engage in the trainings of the Bodhisattva. This means I will not harm others. I will certainly not harm them with my physical behavior, and I will not harm them with my speech. Whether I'm speaking directly to others or about others, I will abandon any form of inappropriate speech. Because the very meaning of going for refuge is that you recognize it's through relying on the teachings of the Buddha and the example of the Sangha and the Buddha himself that we gain protection. Therefore, my behavior, my speech, my way of thinking will be in accord with the teachings of the Buddha, and I will train my mind in the way I'm being guided. So here we cultivate ethics. Following that, the determination, and from now, however I can help others, I will do so. And in your practice, if you have the time, you now can make some offerings or engage in further meditation on any of these points. All of this is accumulation. Or, as has been touched on yesterday and this morning, you can engage in purification practice with the four opponent powers. And then when you come to concluding your meditation, conclude with this determination, because this final part is what I encourage you to carry with you into the day. Think ahead of your day. I'm going to be doing these activities, meeting these people, or talking to these people. And you call to mind specific situations you expect to encounter. And you prepare yourself. I may expect these kind of hardships, but I will be patient. I'll deal with it skillfully. I will not respond in a harmful manner. I will not speak harshly. And I will guard my mind. And so use these real life situations of what you expect in the day to prepare yourself how to react skillfully. And then, as you go about your day, you remind yourself of this, because you're reminding yourself of ethics as well as wholesome characteristics, wholesome aspects such as patience or generosity and so forth. And in this way, you keep those virtuous minds present within you. You can keep refuge present too, through the commitment to follow in the footsteps of the Buddhas, to live in accordance with the vows and promises we have all made. So by doing this again and again, every morning, keeping it alive throughout the day, you'll be engaging in extensive accumulation and purification and habituation to this way of thinking. This is the way to transform your mind, to engage in practice such as this repeatedly over a sustained period.
네 도스치네 겸로 지나가는 저기다 근데 류가 예수님 요건에 샬란데바 지금에 선비기다 도스친 수림 소야래 근데 류가 류로제 교소다지 받침제 샬리아 직신 선sem젤리아 팬베르비 땅기 선비게 동에 선바자야 나 현기 소소리아 네바신 델리파 콩들랑게 상 콩르 말라 마세 델리아 잠니 지기토가 지긴 선비 섬다네 쇠바자기로 데네게다 니게위 냠네 제페 야고레세 가신 구바디 존주시 도스치네 제디다 내가 저기 제 투야로 채고라다 띵띵이지 신내세야 되다 동방인도 베시라 검세야디 가 저기 디게메도 검야를 데스칼레아로 쇼르바 다즈디 두시는 가 저기 검 투야 채고라 되네게 전에 담아들은 가 저기다 지금 몰람게 되네 개와 사바텔라 되네 개와 근데 지금电사电주 밀리를 탑대 된들이야 잠니제 장주sem라서 냠네 탈침바제네 뉴도 산디고 모토도 비규규어 쇼세하다 되네게 냠네진데 샘제 탐주 코르 동안에 드레제야 산기고 폴 뉴도 고토비 규규어 쇼세 도시는 아직이 몰람게 차고로 와다
Just to emphasize some of the key points. So it was a step-by-step outline briefly mentioned, but key points, because these are the ones that we can do and we must do, is first that of ethical restraint. So we've developed this determination not to harm and keep redeveloping it, regenerating it, ideally before every interaction with others. This commitment, I will not bring harm. It's not through my physical behavior and not through my speech. And I will guard my mind so that as soon as an affliction arises, I will abandon it and I'll keep my mind virtuous. You build on that with generosity. So ethics is, I will not harm others through body, speech, and mind. Generosity is, I'll use my body, speech, and mind to be of benefit to others. I will give to others through my service, through my praise and my encouragement, and a positive mindset. So here, with our body, speech, and mind, we commit to doing no harm, but to helping wherever we can. And thirdly, that of patience. Patience comes about in dependence on ethical restraint, love, and compassion, these three. So here, we make the commitment, I will not get annoyed and frustrated, and certainly not angry, because others matter. They are equally dear to me. Whomever I meet, they all matter. And if their mind happens to be overwhelmed by ignorance and they're saying silly things or doing silly things, it doesn't matter. And if their mind is overwhelmed by strong affliction and they're speaking to me in an aggressive manner or acting towards me in an aggressive manner, it doesn't matter. What matters is their happiness. I will respond with skill and with care. So here we generate the determination of patience. And especially where you know in the day you're going to have a challenging encounter, prepare yourself. Then fourthly, generate joy. Recognize how fortunate I am to be doing this meditation, how fortunate I am to have reminded myself of the topics of the Dharma during the day. Generate joy. And through this joy, one will want to continue ever more. In particular, when you include a recognition of your successes, of where you are doing well. And then usually one would be encouraged here to also meditate on concentration and wisdom realizing emptiness. But for now, do these meditations that I've mentioned. Put your energy there. Build up the basis for when later, in time to come, we will come to concentration and wisdom. But here you develop the basis so that your mind is strong and powerful. Then concentration comes by much more easily and emptiness can be realized. This is your preliminary practice, starting here and building through what we will continue over the coming years. So this then is how for each of us to live a meaningful life, to take the very essence from this precious human rebirth we've achieved and to reflect every day on, or to generate every day, definite emergence and bodhicitta. This is how to live a meaningful life. And conclude with prayer to stay in contact with the Dharma and our teachers, life to life, because we don't know when death will come. We don't know if we will all gather together in February or not. So we make these prayers so that when death comes, the causes we have created will bring about a desired precious human rebirth again.
Alright, that dene zada dos dene ngazu doshasan digo that jesan that dene ngazu that dawani konsen parale ngazu dosine chik samdai komje de chawa yungore jesan that dene zada ngazu dene da mau banda lochima muti ji den mata tablam nyamne che gewi nyamne che dosine ma muti ji shuyare.
So I believe I've given you plenty of homework for these next 2 months. But if you do these meditations, when we rejoin in February, you will feel a difference within yourself, particular confidence of just what you can achieve. And next year then, we'll continue, of course, with the presentation on refuge, which express it as the text does. We'll continue with the presentation on how to create the causes to experience ever more happiness in lives to come.
Chi ye delia and kawa komyata the mamba the mudi nyamne chi yin se pike dubaki che the gewa ba to me ba sa che be gewa di de la de na nga juge ni che ane jige sangi ge tempa da ni jo semja tham che le di yu yong da ma ju ne semja tham je ge dan da sangyo ko ba yu de bi gyu gyu wa sho se ma lam je re andi ma jang nga juge jige gewa di la de ne da nga juge che so re ko ba re ane da sa nga ju di andi jige che de chen 제가 되게 저걸람도 차상 약고 영야다 안디 마찬가 저기 에빔 지기 공기 지게 점령 가제 갈이 되게 최소 차상하다면 지게 미망부를 핑거를 제가 는 제네 자다 차상 람로 약고 영야 여기다 도시는 약고 영화 쇼스베다 되네시게 뭐가게다 개와딜레 되네가 저기 되네게 안에 점령이란 내무 추수에 되게 시제는 아니 시대 뉴도 시대 영화 쇼스에 말하면 되네 되네시 담만 도시 쇼션
At the end of each meditation session, at the end of each day, it's important to generate and to dedicate with sincerity. So now is our opportunity to dedicate, so to present an illustration of how to do so. Because what's important is not just the mere recitation of words, but the mind with which one does so. So we have now concluded another year together. This is now 9 in total that we've had together. Our second year on this precious text, the Middle Lamrim by Lama Tsongkhapa, and just more than 100 sessions together on this with this text. So we have really quite some merit to dedicate. So we dedicate so that each and every mother sentient being, whomever they are, whatever realm they are abiding in now, may they gain complete freedom from suffering and quickly connect with the teachings of the Buddha Dharma, develop faith in them, and strive to cultivate the minds of the Dharma within, progressing rapidly towards Buddhahood. And may all the entities and projects in the world that are aimed at bringing good, may they flourish and be successful. I think in particular of those that we have direct connection with, such as Atisha Center, the nunnery, the monastery, the great stupa, all of these entities and all other entities in the world who have a focus to alleviate suffering, may they all be successful, may all the goals be quickly fulfilled. And in particular, may beings everywhere abide in peace and harmony. May all conflict come to an end through beings transforming their minds. May beings be at peace with themselves and with those around them. May all beings abide in harmony. Then thank you.